This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
So this is the Big Football Show. We're back again. Football's back again. Happy days are here again. So, folks, welcome to the Big Football Show with your co-host here. I'm Mac. They call me the coach. We have the historian for our football show, Jack Hirsch, and we also have our legend, two-time Super Bowl champion, Jim Jeffcoat, member of the 100 Sack Club, and also was nominated 6 years ago to be in the Hall of Fame. How y'all doing today?
Right. I'm doing good.
Good. So Jim, I said that because I want to segue into something. We had, of course, the inductees that went to the Hall of Fame: Don Coryell, Zach Thomas, Rondé Barber. You know, the people that went in there, and there was a couple, maybe 2 or 3 that were questionable to me, and I want to get your take on it because, you know, the Hall of Fame is supposed to be for the legends. They're supposed to be the best players at their position in the history of the NFL. That's what the Hall of Fame is supposed to be for. And I have a couple of questions for you. I think that some players were very good at their position for a short time than others. They may be impactful at that time, but I don't know if they're Hall of Fame members. Yeah, and one of those people to me is Zach Thomas. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong. Zach Thomas was a great linebacker for the time he was at Miami. But I don't know if he's the best linebacker at that position, being worthy to go into the Hall of Fame.
Let me ask you this question, and we talked about it before this show, obviously, but who would you put in front of Zach Thomas and who is eligible for it?
Well, I would have to see the eligible. I would have to see the eligible members. I mean, that's probably a long list, but I mean, I would have to look at that and
that's what I'm saying. It's not players don't vote for the Hall of Fame,
right?
Writers do, and it's all over the country. There are certain writers that don't see these players all the time obviously, and when you vote for it, what happens is if that writer in your region, he has to put you up there, put your name up there and say, basically, this is what he's done. But he has to put your name in the pot. And then he has to, why is this guy a Hall of Famer? You know, what has he done at his position or for the game? You know, there's players, obviously. I always argue that John Lynch shouldn't have been in before Darren Woodson. I mean, Darren Woodson won 3 Super Bowls, and he was all-time leading tackler for the Dallas Cowboys. And if you look at their stats, they're very similar. So you don't know. It's not us picking them. It's writers picking them.
Well, let me give you an example. It took Harry Carson, years and years to get in the Super Bowl. Harry Carson compared to Zach, there's no comparison there.
No, there is.
So this is what I'm saying, Jim. I think Zach Thomas, Chuck Howley, great linebacker for his time. I mean, you know, he's great getting the ball. He played big in big games. But is he really a great linebacker?
But you could argue on all these guys except for Darrelle Revis. And he's probably the only one that would be truly, there is no question he's Hall of Fame. You could say, some people could say, and I agree with Joe Clucko was one of the best of his time, but was he on that level?
Agree.
Was Rondé Barber on that level?
Agree.
And that's the thing. But you could make an argument pro and con. I think Joe Clucko belonged in the Hall of Fame.
You know, you're mentioning now, Jim, you're going to another area like who was the most worthy Hall of Famer this year, and you're basically inferring it was Darrelle Revis, but he had a glamour position. Cornerback's a glamour position if you could shut a guy down. Actually, the best player, if we had to prorate it position against position, would probably be Joe Thomas, would be my guess. Played on terrible teams and was a rock. if one player had to go in and only one player, I would have picked Joe Thomas first. He didn't move around team to team either. A lot's to be said for him playing so long for one team.
And he's never been to a playoff game, which is interesting. You very rarely see that. You very rarely see a player that has not been on a dominant team make it. So.
And before we welcome in Keith Engle, Joe Thomas never demanded a trade despite being on a losing team.
Yeah, because Peyton Manning wanted him in Denver, and he told him no.
Well, Keith Engle from TGI-Sports Talk is here. Hi, Ian from Australia. Glad that you joined and found our show. We love this. This is one of our favorite shows to do. Keith, how you doing today, partner?
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. It's a beautiful Sunday here, and I hope it is where you are.
It definitely is. Keith, Zach Thomas, I want to get your comment real quick before we get into the Patriots. Zach Thomas gets in. And if you look at the Patriots middle linebackers, number 59 for the Patriots was on a couple Super Bowl teams. And I don't think is he in the Hall of Fame yet?
No. You talking about?
Bruschi was 54. He was not in the Hall of Fame. I was going to mention the same exact thing. If Zach Thomas was a fine player, if he's in the Hall of Fame, Teddy Bruschi's got to be in the Hall of Fame.
And this is what I'm talking about. And I know we can get back. Good morning, Rick. I know we can go back and forth on this forever. Don Coryell never won a Super Bowl. They say, well, he was an offensive genius. Well, there's been a lot of great offensive-minded coaches out there, and I expect the Hall of Fame to be the best of the best. And I think we're kind of stepping down from that now.
I disagree a little bit with Don Coryell. Some of the other guys you guys talked about, I agree with. Zach Thomas specifically. I think Don Coryell definitely belongs in the Hall of Fame because he changed the game. He started changing the game the way it's being played today.
I agree with you. And a lot of these coaches that you see took away from the things that he did in San Diego at that period.
Not to disqualify anything you guys are saying, but I hear that about all coaches. And I hear that about, you can go all the way back to Paul Brown, who was in the Hall of Fame. He changed offenses. I hear this about a lot of different coaches. To me, you got to win at least one Super Bowl to get in there. And that's just, that's my opinion.
You got to win intangibles, Mac.
Well, if you say that, Dan Marino couldn't have been in.
Right.
Listen, Dan Marino, there was a point. There was a point. There was a point to that.
Marty Schottenheimer, one of the more successful coaches, of his era at least, okay? A complete winner. He could take a weak team and turn them around, but he never got to the Super Bowl. Is he a Hall of Famer?
Also never affected the way the game the way Don Coryell did, ever. He may have more wins than
I agree 100% with Keith. Don Coryell, those offenses were difficult, and he had some defensive talent. If you look at it, Gary Big Hands Johnson, Fred Dean, Louis Kelcher. If you watch football in that era, Don Coryell was a hell of a coach.
He sure was, and with the Cardinals before the Chargers too, he was a good coach.
Yeah, that's when he coached Jim Hart. Okay, Ian says there's no Hall of Fame in Australian football. Talk about a tough game. I don't know if Jim could handle Australian football. That's a tough game.
Tough,
So Keith, let's get into.
By the way, not to change the subject or stay on that subject for a second. I learned recently there's a difference between Australian rules football and rugby. I thought it was the same game.
Oh, really?
It's different.
Yes,
I didn't know that. That's something you learn.
I've watched both of them. In Australian football. I really enjoy watching that when it's on.
Yeah.
Keith, so we got a lot to get to with the Patriots college football. So let's get into it.
Sure.
So Bill O'Brien's offense is up and running. We talked a little bit about it Saturday. The Patriots last year pretty much were one-dimensional in that they had the same formation. They ran pretty much, Stevenson right, Stevenson left, throw on third down. Bill O'Brien's not going to work that way. He's got a lot more motion. He's got a lot more multiple sets moving around, shifting. And they finally kicked in against the Patriots defense, scored some touchdowns. And I guess this is why Bill O'Brien is with the Patriots right now.
Definitely, and it's going back to some of the things that Patriots have done historically through this 20-year run with Bill O'Brien, with Josh McDaniel at different times as well. You mentioned giving teams different look. They could run the same play out of different looks. That makes a big difference in just running the same play out of the same look. And last year they were boring, predictable. You won't see that this year. I was checking out something from some camp notes the other day, and they've already run screens, like 6 or 7 different types of screens, and again, all of them out of different multiple sets. So,
Chief, getting back with Bill O'Brien, I think I mentioned this to you a couple of weeks ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, saying that he would have full control of the Patriot offense, and you were saying basically, correct me if I'm wrong, it still has to go through Bill Belichick. I disagree because I don't think Bill O'Brien comes back to New England unless he would have full control, because he could have had his pick of a lot of jobs. So he's not coming back to New England where he's going to have to take orders from Belichick. I can't see that happening.
No, I do not mean, and if I said it that way, I don't misinterpret. I would say any head coach is going to have a veto over any play.
And they should, right, Keith? Don't you agree?
That's right. I'm the guy who's supposed to make that final call. I'm not saying he's going to tell Bill O'Brien what to do, game in and game out. But if there's a big moment where he thinks, no, we shouldn't run this play, he's got veto power. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Bill O'Brien does have control of that offense.
So Bill O'Brien comes out, says he enjoys coaching Mac Jones, and that he's kind of jabbing at him, saying that Zappe throws the long ball. He threw the long ball a little bit better, and that maybe Mac Jones is a little bit more accurate than Zappe. But that's what you do to inspire a player, or kind of make him do better than what he's doing. So that was interesting. He hasn't had a big. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
No, all I was going to say, if you were going on that thing that Zappe threw the bet long ball, well, Joe Montana, we were talking about Hall of Famers, wouldn't have been a Hall of Famer. He wasn't a long ball thrower. He was a precision passer. And a lot of those quarterbacks that are in the Hall of Fame, you had some mad bombers, but the majority of them were in the intermediate game.
Oh, definitely. They depend on the receiver after the catch, and you see a lot of timing. So he said he hasn't had a big enough sale of DeMarcus Pop Douglas yet, which is he says he's just in the same bucket with the rest of the rookies for right now. Again, maybe trying to, spur him on a little bit more, which is what a coach should do.
Yeah,
but
he
looks good. He looks good.
Closer. He's closer. He's going to make this team. He's going to be maybe at worst, maybe the third or fourth wide receiver. I mean, he may even be more than that before the season's out. I don't expect him to start the season with a huge role. Who knows? But I mean, right now Thornton's on the bubble. He's not having a good camp, and he could be cut. And
you mentioned him too earlier in our shows.
Yeah, I thought he'd be a guy that might step forward this year, actually. And you look at the depth chart of wide receiver, it's not going to be that hard for Pop Douglas to move up it if he continues to check all the boxes like he has in training camp so far.
It's kind of funny, Keith, that you're talking about that, because the Cowboys had a guy named Jalen Tolbert, and he was from a small school in Alabama, and he struggled in his rookie year. Mm-hmm. But now, after a second year in the NFL, he's starting to get better, and he's starting to make an impact, and he'll make the team. But he wasn't a guy that they anticipated moving up this fast.
Yeah. And you know what? It is training game. When the real games start, we'll start to see a little bit more.
You're exactly right.
Yeah. And even in the and to me, exhibition games are what they are. What's more interesting to me in camp is when teams start having practices together against each other. So? I just don't get a lot out of the exhibition games. I just don't. Just because there's so many guys that you won't see later on. If you want to see the veterans and you want to see the real rookies that are going to have an impact, I pay attention to what goes on in these inter-team practices.
But I know what you're saying. But first of all, you only have 10 padded practices during the preseason now. That makes a difference. So everyone is important.
Yeah,
you're there, and then when you play other teams in scrimmages, what happens most of the time? You just have a big brawl.
Yeah, big brawl somewhere. That's true. That's a great point. That eats
Majority of the time. So
up 20 minutes of the practice.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, let's not get it twisted. We know the preseason games are mainly to evaluate players, the rookies, the veterans that are fighting for jobs, the bubble guys. That's what it's for. It's a coaching tool. I enjoy that aspect.
I'm not saying they're not important. Just don't get me wrong. I don't say they're not important. They are. I mean, for me, again, it's hard for me to watch an entire game.
But it's not taking it. And now preseason games are not taking. It's not to the advantage of the top of your roster. It's who finishes your roster, the lower part of it, because that's what you're evaluating. You already know probably the first, 30, 35 people you're going to have.
Exactly. And I would like to see, believe me, I would also like to see more emphasis on the starters playing more in exhibition games as we get closer to the season starting, the last couple, because that's why we get such bad football in September. Is that nobody hasn't played.
And Rick makes a great point. Some guys look great in shorts and T-shirts.
Yeah.
But, hey, the first time they get hit in the mouth and they taste their blood, they say, well, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Well, I didn't know Mike Tyson joined us today. It was.
What do you think of Sean Payton making the starters play for Denver like it's a regular season game? It seems like he's being a little hard on Russell Wilson.
Maybe he is, and maybe he should be hard on Russell Wilson because Russell Wilson was babied last year, and that was a big part of what happened to Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos last year. But the coach created a chasm between the players, and he's trying to say Russell Wilson is just like everybody else.
Yeah, and I think what he's trying to do is, you mentioned it earlier when you were talking about it, is September is the worst time for players because of timing, because they don't play that much in the preseason. Now, if you get Russell Wilson to play a couple of quarters, his timing will be better at the beginning of the year. Hopefully you don't get a lot of injuries, but that's a part of football.
Agreed. I think you'll have less injuries if you played guys more in the preseason anyway. Overall.
Good job, Jack. I was going to bring that up right when Keith said.
But you want to copy game conditions, yet the coaches have players hold back. Like Micah Parsons hit Dak Prescott the other day, and he was pulled aside by Mike McCarthy. Oh, no, you can't put hands on him. You have to baby him. I don't mean you hit him hard and knock him over and fall on him. I understand that. But why is the quarterback completely off limits?
You have to reject it too, Jack.
Get rid of the darn ball so you won't get hit.
Exactly. You need to learn to absorb hits. We've talked about this 100 times, right? And I know Jim has commented on this, that players don't learn to absorb hits, and that's why they get hurt when they do get hit.
That's why they get hurt. And I agree with you. And maybe you're not acclimated to game situations.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Your body has to get used to getting hit.
So Keith, let's get back to the Patriots.
Sure.
We were talking about Pop Douglas there. He's a slot guy. And they're starting to bring the tight end in more. This is what the Patriots were known for. A nice little slot guy, a couple good athletic tight ends that could catch the ball and block and run with the ball sometimes and even lead block. This is where I see the Patriots. And I'm starting to get juiced by the Patriots a little bit. I'm thinking maybe they're going to do a lot better than I thought they were going to do over there in AFC East.
I'm excited with the change in offense, as I've talked about all along, getting back to more of their roots, at least the roots of their success the last 20 years, controlling the line of scrimmage. The offensive line problems may cause a lot of this excitement to go away when the real games start. We'll see how that works out. But, getting back to the bubble screens and controlling line of scrimmage, because it opens up the field the things downfield for Mac Jones. The knock on Mac Jones is he can't get the ball down the field. Well, they weren't running schemes that would allow him to get the ball down the field with any success, I don't think, either.
Let me ask you this question, Keith, about the Patriots. They're really good on defense, as we know. They got Judon and all those guys. And then the Jets are very good on defense. But the two most explosive teams on offense are probably Buffalo and Miami. So we're going to find out if the old adage says that defense wins championships, because the Jets obviously are probably in in New England are the best defenses in that division.
Yeah, and there's still some question marks in the secondary, as we've talked about. But, I mean, overall, the defense is good. And the benchmark of this team has been the defense over the years. Again, when they were very good, was they gave up lots of yards.
Mm-hmm.
They never
gave up touchdowns.
No, they didn't. They were very bend, but don't break efficient. A lot of people like to look at all the yards they gave up. And I'm like, well, who won the game? You know?
Yeah, the Stephon Diggs make it much harder on the Buffalo offense with his hissy fits, because now anyone playing Buffalo knows Josh Allen's got to throw the ball to Stephon Diggs a lot. Otherwise, Stephon Diggs is going to have a fit.
I don't think so, because great receivers always whine. They want the ball they're open every play. You got 3 people on them. They're open.
But Stephon Diggs goes a bit overboard.
And what did he say? He did, but he apologized and said, hey, I'm all in. I'm 100% in. That's just and that is, wide receivers are like that.
Yeah, I think we've reached a point where teams realize these guys are divas and it's just going to happen.
Yeah, and Jim uses the excuse, well, they say they just want to win. I mean, that's what the receivers say. They just want to win. So we're supposed to condone their behavior.
But great receivers, they say Jerry Rice was a diva, you know. And they said, Michael Irvin was.
But he didn't disrupt. But Jim, he didn't disrupt practice. He didn't go on a sideline and act like a little baby. I mean, it's different. Yeah. Stephon Diggs is an interrupter.
You just got to deal with that personality.
I remember him throwing a big hissy fit after not getting the MVP in the Super Bowl. I know that.
Yeah,
Jerry Rice.
Yeah. I deal with it. I deal with it.
But that's just their personality. As a head coach,
so
you got to make sure they're not disruptive.
Yeah.
You need a couple leaders in that locker room to tell them sit down and shut up. That's what you need. Keith, some load management there. Stevenson, they're kind of taking their time with him. They're not giving as much work as they did last year. Your 2 tackles are interesting to me. They don't know whether it's load management or they're unhappy with their contracts, especially Trent Brown.
Trent Brown's totally out of shape. That's his biggest issue. I don't think it's a contract issue with Trent Brown. I think if you look at him, he looks like a Thanksgiving Day balloon right now. He's huge and not in good game shape. I think that's part of the problem. Now, that's a good reason to practice him, I think, as well, to get him in shape. But, you know, again, the load management thing, there's 2 sides to this, because Ramondre Stevenson comes in this conversation as well, because he hasn't been in gotten a lot of reps early in training camp, and they were asking him about it. He's frustrated, but they're trying to probably save some of the wear and tear on him for the regular season.
I agree with that.
And so I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here too. I know that, but as Jim said, you only get 10 days in pads. You got to make use of them, and it really isn't doing.
To me, it's different for linemen on both sides, offense and defense, because of the physical nature of it. They're going to get hit the majority of plays, so they have to be in better shape as far as preparing themselves for that. Running backs, they're taking a load by running the ball, obviously, and they're getting hit at a high. And most teams don't play their running backs a lot in the preseason, so that's not a problem.
And the other side of that line with Reif, he's been hurt, and he's also getting outplayed by McDermott, so he may lose his job. The Patriots are not very deep, so there's a lot of injuries and whatever on this offensive line right now. Strange has been hurt. They need to get deeper somehow. I don't know how you can do it. I don't know that there's any offensive tackles available that are any good right this minute. There may be some available as guys get cut, but depth is going to be a problem on this offensive line all year for sure. If their top 5 guys play well and stay healthy, probably should come first.
Yeah, that's a detriment to the offense when your offensive line is not good.
Yeah, and so I'm not confident in the depth of this line more than anything else. So we'll see how that goes, and it's very important to what they're going to run. So, but listen, I'll tell you another thing: the Patriots at different times have had really bad offensive lines and had really good teams, because when they run these little bubble screens and these quick hitters, it takes the pressure off
Yeah, but you also got to remember they had one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Well, that's a good point. I can't discount the fact the guy was running the offense.
That's right.
Speaking of quarterbacks, okay, we know Matt wants Zappe to be starting for New England. How long of a leash does Mac Jones have?
As long as possible. If he doesn't get hurt, he will be the quarterback for 17 games, definitely, or more, hopefully more. But he's not. He's got a long leash. He's playing really well. He's grasping everything that they're doing. He's happy. That's a big thing too. He's happy with the way that Bill O'Brien is approaching practices. They have a plan every single day, where last year they didn't necessarily do that. They're cleaning up some of the things that were a mess. We talked about how bad the offense was last year as far as play calling and efficiency. The penalties killed them all year last year as well on the offensive line specifically. And they've been better, at least again, in a practice situation. It's different when we get in the game. We know that. But he's cleaning things up, and Mac Jones is really happy. On the other side of this, he's really happy with Bill O'Brien. So it matters.
Yeah, they were pretty undisciplined last year. Keith, let's get to college football. Unprecedented moves, right? P, the Pac-12 is no longer, and the Big 12 is taking over, and Florida State may be going to the Southeast the Southeast Conference. Yeah, I want to talk about Notre Dame's, whether you like it or not, they still have a presence in college football. Do you think that maybe if Notre Dame joined the ACC, that Florida State would never think of leaving, or that maybe the ACC could have drew more teams?
I'm not sure that Notre Dame alone could make that difference in the ACC right now. I'm not sure. And now, people talk about Notre Dame and the Big Ten all the time, right? What people forget is they have an agreement with the ACC to play X amount of games. They're not a full member, but they also have a contract that says if they join a league, it will be the ACC. So it's going to cost them money if they want to go somewhere else. For the ACC to survive, I think they need Notre Dame. I really do. But they need a little bit more. There was talk this past week before everything came down, and Colorado started all these tidal waves, amazingly enough, that Colorado could affect everything this much. But it really did start the ball rolling. There were rumors that the ACC and the Pac-12 may form some kind of merger to have a conference, a coastal coast-to-coast presence. It won't happen now, when there's only going to be Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, and Washington State left.
That's all there is.
Those teams are left out in the cold. They've got to find a place to go. I mean, they're not going to find a power conference to go to, though. Maybe the Big Ten has talked about if they go to 20, they'll add Cal and Stanford because they get that.
Oregon State is still out, and that's interesting. Oregon State is in the worst position.
They're probably going to be looking at the Mountain West or someplace. Yeah. Those remaining teams would be my guess, which is not a bad football conference, by the way.
Yeah, but it's nothing close to what the Pac-12 was, or some of those bigger top Power Five.
Even the Big 12, with the moves that they've made to try to change the league, with Oklahoma and Texas leaving next year, they don't match up. There's no brand name there. They brought in some good football teams. Don't get me wrong.
Utah is the best team now.
They will be the best team and the best brand there. When Oklahoma and Texas are brands, right? And this is the thing with realignment. This is the thing with realignment too. The Oklahoma and Texas are going to find out when they go to the SEC, they're no longer the brand of the league. Exactly. That's Alabama and Georgia and LSU.
And I looked at this. Oklahoma could go in the direction of Nebraska. They're closer to being another Nebraska than to being a dominant team in the SEC. And it's because of demographics.
Yep. Recruiting changes. Everything changes when you do this type of move. And USC and UCLA better watch out for UCLA to a lesser extent. Again, you're no longer the brand. USC was the Pac-12 for decades.
Yeah, right.
So even when they were bad, they were still the brand. So it's the whole landscape has changed, and it's going to get very interesting. Yeah. This also affects the 12-team playoff, by the way.
You're right.
Right now, it's the best 6 conference champions. Well, we only got 2 power conferences or 3 maybe left. After the first year, this may all change how they bring these 12 teams in.
We always can change Stanford for Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
that was a shot at Robert.
Hey, man, I've been trying to get rid of Vanderbilt for years.
Listen, Robert graduated ahead of his class at Vanderbilt, the way I heard it. Right ahead of.
Man, I could barely spell Vanderbilt without Googling, guys. I admit it, I ain't that smart.
Maybe I'm thinking of Carlos. Maybe it was Carlos that graduated.
Probably in his own mind, yes. Smartest guy in the world, just ask him.
Sorry, folks. These are all inside jokes. These are all inside jokes. Carlos is a helps out Keith, and so Carlos, the mad New Yorker, they're talking about. Keith, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week, and have a good show.
Have a great night, guys.
Take care, Keith.
Okay, Keith. So there you go, folks. Keith Engle, TGI Sports, commenting on the Patriots and college football. We now have Robert Butler from Sports Skope with a K joining us. Robert, welcome to the big football show.
Hey, guys. Glad to be here. We're getting closer.
All right. Yes, we are.
We got a lot of stuff to talk to you about.
Oh, man.
Let's start with Jamar Chase. He says he doesn't want Joe Burrows playing until he's 100%. Of course, Burrows is up for a contract. He gets injured again. The owner's got a big decision to make. Does he make them the highest player? Jamar Chase is chiming in. What are you going to have, the second string quarterback play for the first 6-8 games?
Yeah, Trevor Siemian would be that guy. And they are kind of cut between a rock and a hard place if you really think about it. This division is so competitive this year. I'm expecting a lot out of Cleveland, man. I mean, Cleveland looks really good. Baltimore's got probably their best offense they've had in probably 10 years on paper. And then you look at Kenny Pickett, what they did around him with Pittsburgh. It's very strong there. Chase says he set out an extra game so he can be ready for the playoffs. And he was the leading receiver in the playoffs for Cincinnati in every single game except for the AFC Championship game, only inked out by one reception by T. Higgins. So I understand what he's saying. There are windows now because when T. Higgins comes up for renewal, they're obviously going to renew Jamar Chase. We know Burrows is sitting there, that big contract. We talked about that last week.
Keith, you can correct Robert. I'm sorry, Robert. Yeah. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Joe Burrow said that he's not looking for the biggest contract? He's looking for a contract that he can keep his personnel.
Yeah, he wants to keep those guys there. You just wonder how much of a hometown or discount or whatever, however you want to make it out to be.
Because he is, this kid is unique. Did you know that because of him, they built the indoor facility?
Yeah. I talked about it last week. Was you on last week? I can't remember. Well, my shows run together.
Yeah, but that's the thing. This kid has made an impact on Cincinnati. Burrows. He's a unique personality.
Yeah. If you throw the cap out, he's worth to be a highest paid player. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you're talking about sacrifices with the Bengals. Joe Mixon took a pay cut to stay with the Bengals, but now off the field issues are resurfacing again. And this isn't the first time. He's had a couple of incidents, and it's got to be a little bit concerning.
Yeah, the NFL said I read something. I don't have all the details, guys, about the NFL looking into college career off the field incidents in reference to, as an example, Joe Mixon's incident back at Oklahoma. Not sure if they should go there, but Joe Mixon, I didn't hear about another incident, Jack. That's news to me.
You remember somebody shot at a kid?
Yes.
The next door neighbor. That's what he's talking about, Joe.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if there was addition to that.
No. And he's getting sued for that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. He had some kind of links there. This was 6 or 7 months ago, I think.
Yeah. And then I'm sure Mac is going to talk about Alvin Kamara too.
Yeah.
That's what. Thank you, Jim. We're going to get right into that now.
Yeah.
Him,
He knows the
him and his-
lineup, Jim. You got it
I
memorized.
think Mac's going to talk about how he
Him-
wishes the Giants had Alvin Kamara in the backfield with Saquon Barkley. That's what Mac will talk about.
him and his partner in crime there, the Colts defensive back,
Yep.
Chris Lemon.
Yeah.
They both are. They're both in trouble. They got 3-game suspensions. In your opinion, is that severe enough for? I mean, he could be in jail if the guy didn't drop the charges because of the video. He probably would have been in jail. So, do you think that that's a big enough, penalty for him to pay?
Well, he paid
Mac, I just want to
$100,000.
cut in
Go ahead,
just
Mac.
one thing. I don't think the charges were dropped. I think he made a plea deal out of Kamara admitting guilt. In exchange, he's not going to have any jail time.
Well, I
Right.
don't think they're felony charges now. No,
I don't know.
I don't think they're felony charges now. The plea deal was pleading to a lesser charge, essentially.
Yeah. He pleaded to
Man,
breach.
I feel like
pleaded to
I
breach
took
of
one
peace,
legal
Robert.
class, media law. I'm not a lawyer, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
According from what I understand, Roger Goodell, whose father was a United States Senator, and whose father, Charlie Goodell, who was a Republican, went against his own party's president, Richard Nixon, during the Vietnam War. Roger Goodell believes in principle. He wants the players to admit when they did wrong. If they understand it, he'll work along with them. And Alvin Kamara at least has said all the right things. He said he's guilty.
But my whole problem with the
Owns up to
system is they do different with the players than the management, the owners.
Yeah.
It is totally different. Because you always hear about these suspensions, and I agree with the gambling and some of these things that are going on with the players. But what about the management? They're doing some things that are kind of shady too.
They're Goodell's boss, though. The owners are Roger Goodell's boss.
And I agree, but is that right? That's just as bad as the players?
It is. The owners want Roger Goodell to even manage their own to a small extent. Like if a fellow owner does something really bad, all the other owners expect Goodell to do something, like take away a draft
pick. Somebody to buy the team for $6 billion.
Yeah. But he was forced to sell. He got kicked out of the club, Jim.
But he made quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
For getting kicked out.
Well, I mean, they can't take the money from
like owning
they
a
can't take the
team.
franchise.
And then they fined him $60 million.
He did get a huge fine. Yeah, he sure did get a huge fine.
What was that? Like 0.2 or 1%?
Oh, sorry, Mac. We took it to another.
Yeah, he made it. He made it $6 billion. He made off that sale. That $60 million didn't hurt his pocket that much. Robert, let me ask you a little bit about Dalvin Cook. I mean, he's taking his time. The Jets, the Dolphins, the Patriots. I don't know. The Cowboys. Where is he going? For God's sake.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook and those guys are still interested. My thing is, it's kind of annoying me when players do this, that they want to milk out all the training camp, and he signs with a team, then he pulls a hamstring week 1, and then you're out of some money, and then you got to pick up another running back in week 2 here. So and everything you said, that's the latest I've read as well. Patriots, Dolphins. The Saints now. Eno Benjamin ruptured his Achilles.
Yes.
They just have Jamal Williams, really, Jim.
At the Saints?
At the Saints, yeah.
No, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Dalvin Cook is playing the Jets. He wants to be a Miami Dolphin, his hometown team. He keeps saying that, but meanwhile, he says he's maybe close to signing with the Jets, thinking the Dolphins will get jealous, or they want to keep him away from their competitor, the Jets, and then he'll go to Miami. He's using it as some type of power play, I think.
Yeah. I don't want to take this off in a different direction, but John Gruden is a consultant for the Saints now.
Yeah, he'd been working with them in the off season, working with Carr and everybody. This is a big season for what's that coach's name?
Dennis Allen.
Yeah, Dennis Allen there. I mean, they got Michael Thomas is back.
Sure,
Chris Olave, they really putting a lot into their offense now,
Yes.
and they're probably going to have to sign another running back.
Yes, exactly right. There's a bunch of them out there.
Yeah, Zeke Elliott, Cook, Kareem Hunt's still out there, guys.
Yes.
He probably don't know.
I'm going to bring in Stan the Man a little early here. Maybe he can participate in the talk a little bit. He's really here to talk about the Giants, and that's why I got him in, of course.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to leave.
And
you know what? I understand one of you is the Jets fan.
The Jets fan is
yes, Jack is.
No. I'm a little stunned here, Bobby Stan the Man. I had no idea who you were that you came on. All of a sudden you came on. I thought, who's that? I'm like a little shook up.
Well, from what I hear, I surprised my mother when I came
This is
out.
where I sing a Thibodeau sack, seeing you come on.
Well, I only asked Jack to congratulate you on Klecko and Revis going into the Hall of Fame. They had great speeches yesterday. Hopefully we get some of our guys in there soon. But by all means, I host a show that I've had for 3 seasons previously. It all started when we were kind of going through the end of the Shermer era. And I came over to the show called Tailgate Talk, where I more or less talk about the NFC East schedule throughout the season, give my picks and predictions against the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Washington, whatever you're going to call them this year team, and then our game. And then I laid down like a recipe or whatever I'm going to cook on the grill or whatever. I live out of market from New York, been removed for probably over 20 years now, more than I want to admit. So I catch most of my games on television, catch a couple of games on the road. And, I love my agita. So I'm looking forward to all this excitement in the next few weeks.
All right, Bobby. I mean, you came in, you're taking over the show right away. Thank you for that. I gotta get back to Robert here for a second.
Yeah.
We got him on here.
You got to get Robert.
Stories. We'll get to you guys. So, Robert, Ozzie Newsome, a great in the Hall of Fame as a tight end with the Cleveland Browns, mainly. Also, one of the best GMs in the league when he built up the Baltimore Ravens. Is he going to be the first person to be inducted into the Hall of Fame twice?
Well, I don't know about the first, but I'll say this. He's definitely a Hall of Famer. Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, Jonathan Ogden. He drafted Orlando Brown in the 3rd round, and he just got another big contract from Cincinnati. One of my favorite GMs out there. Guys like Todd Heap. Huh?
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that you can be inducted twice.
Yeah, as a general manager and as a
So
player
he'd be a
personnel.
contributor. He would be inducted as a contributor.
Okay. Well, either way, he's definitely deserved he's been a Hall of Fame player personnel person.
Well, give us some news on Tennessee. What's going on?
The Titans. Well, everything's coming down to the offense. I'll say this, that DeAndre Hopkins had a really good count. He's getting off the line of scrimmage. I'm watching some of the video of him and Treylon Burks going through drills. And you can look, he is a time and a half quicker getting off the line of scrimmage than the second-year guy. Treylon Burks is a much bigger player, big frame. He's still got plenty left in the tank. Everything comes back to these new addition offensive linemen. They've got Sonorski, Daniel Brunskill out of the 49ers, and Andre Dillard, former Philadelphia Eagle. You just hope that now in the next week or so, if Tennessee starts making big moves to get another left tackle, you realize that Dillard's probably getting smoked in practice at left tackle, but that news hasn't came out yet. So we'll see. You're hoping that Vrabel is not deceiving us because they got a pretty good defensive line.
Mm-hmm. So Robert, let's get to the Hall of Fame and maybe you can comment on this too. I don't agree with all the inductees that went in there. I think some are borderline or almost Hall of Famers, but not quite. They were great for their time, good, very good football players. But there are a couple that I have a question about. Do you have any questions about any of the inductees? First, you, Robert.
Not really. I mean, Revis. I thought Revis was the best cornerback in the league for a few years there. I mean, when he was with the Jets, man, he was one of the absolute best. You look at Zach Thomas. He led the league in tackles twice, and then you got DeMarcus Ware. He led the sacks in the league twice. It's one thing to do it one time. It's another thing when you're being game planned for. And then you look at the Denver Broncos, what he did. He actually lifted them to another level. I know they had Von Miller, but a lot of people thought he was washed up when he signed with Denver. And you could tell his presence was known there. So I don't, those later senior inductees before my time, I mean, I couldn't dig into the 70 stats or whatever. But those three, I'm okay with it. Rondé Barber, I mean, look at the consistency, look at the consistency that he played with. Now, a lot of guys, it works against you if you play on a great defense with other Hall of Famers, But look at the Steelers, the Steel Curtain. Look how many Hall of Famers they had.
All right.
So,
Very
I'm
true.
okay
Bobby,
with it.
Do you have any problems with any inductees? How are you, Bob?
Not so much for this. Not so much for this year. I mean, I watched more than half this class play on the field. So by all means, they made some great contributions. I think the process is getting really, really, really complicated over the years to narrow the list down to 15 and down to 10, down to 5, and so forth. And that's what's tough. By all means. But no disappointments
All right.
about who.
I just
who
question
went
because
into the class. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough. Robert, any of the top 10 quarterbacks? They did 100 best NFL players. Any of the top 10 quarterbacks that surprised you?
Not really. Now, this is more of a players type of, the players like dynamic and whatnot. I may have put Burrow above Allen because of his accuracy, but that could change, and I know Jalen Hurts is a little bit lower. The players want to see if he can be more consistent. Same thing with Herbert and Lawrence. They were down in the 20s as overall players. You want to see some more consistency from those guys, but I think they pretty much got it right. Mahomes, Burrow, Allen as those top three. Rodgers, they're looking at Rodgers now. They're not looking at Rodgers in his prime. They were looking at Brady last year when they were doing the one for Brady, not Brady in his 2008, when he broke all the records.
Prescott was in the top 10, wasn't he?
I did not check it. I think he's right there. I have to go back and look.
He was either 6 or 9.
Yeah, I mean, he's,
Yeah.
There's my first problem. And as far as Trevor Lawrence goes, what is he even doing close to the top 10? He is not a top 10 quarterback. Lawrence is not a top 10 quarterback.
See, I would have to disagree. I'm serious on Trevor Lawrence. I think he is, and he's going up.
Yeah,
and he's got a coach that can coach now.
Yeah,
and I think that helps him in Doug Peterson. And he's a quarterback.
No, Jim Mack's saying just at the current time, we're not talking about Trevor Lawrence's upside. He has a lot of it. Maybe by the end of the season, he'll be a top 10 quarterback. But right at this moment, you have to put him a little outside the top 10.
Who are you going to put in front of him?
I could go over a whole list. I mean, I'll go over the AFC East start. I mean, you put Aaron Rodgers ahead of him right now. You put Josh Allen, obviously, ahead of him. Even Tua at this moment. Tua stays injury-free. Mahomes, Justin Herbert ahead of him. I mean, Jalen Hurts, obviously. You could even Kirk Cousins at this moment. If you want to talk about Trevor Lawrence's upside, yeah, I feel he'll get there, definitely, but not at this moment.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I'd agree with everything Jack said.
It's objective. I mean, it just depends on, you look at the way he played last year, towards the end of last year. and you're looking at how he's going to play this year, coming in from the last 7 games of last year. He's only in year 3. I mean, it's good to give him more of a survey size, but you can see where it's going with him, the trajectory.
Yeah.
And he's going to pass Kirk Cousins.
That's
I can
what
tell
I'm
you
saying.
that.
I think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback.
Listen, I don't know if I agree he'll be better than Kirk. I don't know if I agree he'll be better than Kirk Cousins or not. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a great quarterback. That's
because he can play at night. Kirk Cousins can't play at night.
Yeah.
Jim doesn't like Kirk Cousins. It's personal to Jim, Max, so don't go there.
No, it isn't. I'm just telling you, this guy gets millions and millions of dollars. When the game is on the line, he doesn't produce.
The 2 quarterbacks you will never give credit to, Jim, because it's personal, are Kirk Cousins and Kyler Murray. You'll never give either one credit.
Kyler Murray does not. Hey, Kyler Murray is a me guy. It's all about Kyler Murray. That's the honest. Kirk Cousins is a daytime player. Once the lights come on, he is out of it. And what's Kirk Cousins won?
Kirk Cousins. Hey, what has Trevor Lawrence won?
They won a playoff game last year.
Anyway.
They won a division last year.
That's right.
And the one playoff game they won, didn't he throw 4 or 5 interceptions in that game?
They had 4 or 5 touchdowns too, though.
Yeah, that's true.
And they came back and beat, beat the Chargers. Down 27 points. It was or 24.
I'm not down on Kirk Cousins. My son played with him, and I think he's a phony. That's it.
You must have watched that Netflix documentary.
Wow. Yeah. I'm just telling you, and my son was in.
Hey, they're getting inside here, Mac.
Yeah.
All right, Robert. I see that. Robert, you're supposed to be giving me the insight here on the show. Robert, any of the other big stories you got?
Wait. Oh, I'm sorry to cut in on Robert.
This whole college football thing. I mean, if you look at next season, it's the most anticipated season in the history of college football. With Ohio State too. They'll be playing against USC, Oregon, Washington. Now,
no, not until next year, right? It's 2024, right?
Yeah, next year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Oklahoma and Texas are going to be playing in the SEC with the 12-team playoff. You know, that Georgia-Ohio State playoff game got 20 million people watching. That's more than Major League Baseball, NBA, playoff and regular season. Now, of course, 49 million people watched Dallas and 49ers. It's not quite NFL, but college football, ratings-wise, is the second most popular sport in the United States. Who would have thought 20 years ago that it would pass the NBA?
Yeah, but that's alliances to your college, too, you got to remember. Because all these teams have a huge alumni.
I'm excited about the big matchups, guys.
Yeah, that's the big thing about college football. It goes down to tradition and rivalries. Those things have been etched in stone since the beginning of time, you know?
Yeah.
So you see a lot less bandwagon jumping in college football.
Exactly, because that's where you went to school at, and that's where your allegiance for the majority of the time.
Now,
with the transfer rule, you might have went to 5 or 6 schools.
You know, my
it's
biggest challenge about college football right now is the process of picking the 4 playoff teams now versus the old BCS system. I mean, we start off the season looking at at least 2, possibly 3 teams already in the playoffs with college year after year. So that becomes a bit difficult.
Yeah.
I agree.
No, Bobby, we were talking a moment ago about.
So, Robert, you got what else?
Oh, I just want to ask Bobby. We're talking about players who are a little overhyped a moment ago. We're talking about a couple of quarterbacks. What about Thibodeau? To me, one of the most overhyped players. I think he's a draft bust. To be taken number 5 overall, it doesn't mean he's not a okay player. If you took him in the 4th round, he's good enough to hold a roster spot. Okay, he can play years in the league. You could give him a roster spot. I'm not saying cut him. He's good enough to stick with the team, but come on. I mean, if you're counting heavily on him and you're the Giants, he's going to play maybe 4 good games this year and 13 games he won't show up for. Something like that.
See, and I was trying to be a sweet guy because it's Sunday. But Mac, I can tell you, I expect to get a few jabs from little brother today. So I'll say this. During Klecko's speech in my head, I kept hearing Marshall. Okay? So we got to get him in the Hall of Fame soon. But to go back to Thibodeau, look, he's going into his sophomore season in the league. He's matriculated a bit. You know, the guy got held on so many different plays last year, which is part of the game. Don't get me wrong, but he's going to work those kinks out. So looking at a guy and a talent like that coming in year 2, I expect to see him do some bigger things. So if you want to purely look at last year, look, that's learning curve as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Bobby.
No, Jim understands this. There's a certain phoniness to these pass rushes. Like, the guys who can't get to the quarterback, after the quarterback releases the ball and the guy blocking them eases off just a little bit because the quarterback's gotten rid of the ball, that's when a guy like Thibodeau has that last burst. So he's close to the quarterback. He puts a hand on the quarterback, and the commentators are mentioning the way he nearly sacked the quarterback. In other words, he tries to make himself look good as opposed to being effective.
Well, I'll say this much, okay? In the next couple of weeks, we're going to have this big, huge debate in New York about one number 8 versus another number 8. And you know how the New York sports market is. When you come to play in New York as a veteran in any given sport, in any given New York franchise, the local fans don't care about what your resume was before you got there. Once you put our uniforms on, it's about what you do in that moment. And we're going to see something different this year.
All right. Okay. All right, Bobby. Don't pay attention to Jack. He does
I
this
expect the local
every,
media to hype that up all day
Monday.
long. 8 versus 8. I just expect it.
Yes. So,
You know?
Okay, Robert, you got anything else for us before you go?
I was really real quick. I mean, I really don't know what the Lakers were thinking with 2 years left on Anthony Davis's deal. With his injury history,
That's true.
they give him a 3-year extension with LeBron hanging on by threads. This is very Kobe Bryant-like in the last 2 years. This is more about selling tickets rather than looking towards the future there. You just wondered, after they made so many good moves, and I don't care what the Lakers do. I'm just looking at it from a national analyst perspective. So many great moves at the trade deadline. They look like a mature organization. Then they extend Anthony Davis by 3 years. And he'll be about 35 to 2028. Go ahead, Jim.
Maybe LeBron has told him, hey, I'm only going to do it so many more years. And they needed that marquee figure to be because LeBron has even said Anthony Davis is going to be the face of the organization. And maybe that's what they did.
I guess they're thinking that Ham can keep him injury-free, just play through any injury. And, more power to him. I mean, that's kudos to Anthony Davis. But I got a feeling they're going to regret those last 2 years of that contract.
Thank God that Anthony Davis is not Thibodeau.
He's not K1 Thibodeau.
No, unless Anthony Davis is hurt, he's going to perform at the same level. The Lakers are actually smart, I think, to sign Anthony Davis now because you let him get closer to free agency. You never know where he might want to go because the NBA is like a bully league. Guys want to go to different teams where their friend plays. And it's not the way it used to be where they just want to play in New York or Los Angeles. They'll go anywhere to play if their friends are there and they can win a championship.
Yeah. They're always about today. They never really look towards the future, but that's the Lakers for you. Never know what you're going to get.
Hey, Robert, thanks for coming in. Robert from Sports Skope. Check him out. He's on every social. Stan, you're still with us, buddy. So, Robert, thank you for coming in.
All right, buddy.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So, Stan, I think I told you come on at 9:30, but maybe you thought I said 8:30, or maybe the time's different for you over there. So you still got time to talk some Giants?
Absolutely. Plenty of time to talk Giants. Plenty of time to talk football.
All right. So let's look at the Giants training camp. Every fan looks at the training camp and they say, "Oh, my team looks good." Blah blah blah. Training camp lately, and I see some of your videos that you post up there. What players stood out more in the training camp this year than others?
There's a couple, definitely Hodgins. Definitely, Daniel Jones looks a little bit cleaner, in his throws and his accuracy this year. But I would say that the keys to me are our wide receivers, our corners. Okay. So in that group of wide receivers, I would definitely put a kid in there who's an undrafted free agent, Bryce Ford Wheaton, who, given injuries in our history in the past at the position, we could call him off the practice team. Guy's got a nice 6'4" frame. He made some great catches in camp. I'd love to see this guy make the final roster, but I think either way it goes, we might be going to him either way. We really face potential, turmoil in the wide receiver position because of our injury history with Shepard and so forth. Wandell's not healthy. So this is a key part of our offense that has been our Achilles heel over the last few seasons. And we really want to get Jones up to easily 35 to 40 passes a game. It's something we didn't see last year. Our best receiver last year averaged less than 5 targets a game last year. So that's the state of our passing offense. So I'm really, really looking forward to what we can do there. We face off against 4 of the top 5 corner duos this year. Okay. We've got Dallas twice in Diggs and Gilmore. Yeah. We've got in Seattle, Woolen and Witherspoon. Then we've got Philly twice with Slay and Bradbury. And then we've got Ramsey and Howard down in Miami. So, again, it's going to be a great, great challenge. So, yeah, I paid a lot of attention to the wide receiver group. As far as our corners go, we got to give Tate Banks a little bit of time to kind of get himself straight into the league. But I really think our front four, our pass rush, is going to make the key difference on what we see in our defense. Yeah. So the positions I'm worried about most are our guards and our middle linebacker. Definitely.
Yeah, because of the injury.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Giants moved up in the draft to take Highland. How heavily are they counting on him, a rookie to perform at a high level? It's
one of those things that's going to make or break that decision. I mean, and that's just it. I'm not so much as critical on the talent as I am the decisions that come out of the front office, because we moved up to take in 2019, we moved up to take Baker, and we left him. Left DK Metcalf on the table. So there's decisions like that kind of question what this team, where the brains of this team is really going at times. Because during the Gettleman years, it's like we needed to get our plumbing fixed, but the guy knocked out our drywall. So it's like, here we are solid in certain areas, and then we start taking down a peg here. We make some moves over here. Sometimes our pass rush is not great. We've got a decent secondary. Then we take the experience out of the secondary. The pass rush is great, and now we've got a younger group, on the could things have worked out with Kadarius Toney? Now he's with the Chiefs, and he figures to be a prominent player with them. Could things have worked out with his plans? No, that just turned out to be a bad deal, over and above everything else. I mean,
Bobby, I don't agree with you necessarily on the front office. I think the front office has made some incredible moves, signing a nice tight end in Waller. I think Hyatt's going to be fine. Right. He's one of the fastest guys in the league, and I think from what I saw in training camp, he's got good hands. The major concern I got about the Giants is what I've had for the last 4 or 5 years is the offensive line. They've never been able to get 5 players playing all together for 1 year. And chemistry on the offensive line is more important than anything, I think, on the offense. They haven't been able to do that yet. And now Evan Neal has a concussion, maybe only a minor one, but still it takes away practice time. And that's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about Daniel Jones getting hit too much and running too much. And I'm concerned about Saquon Barkley getting hit too much. So that's my biggest concern with the Giants this year.
And my point is, Saquon, can he be happy with a 1-year deal, which I think is totally wrong for a player that caliber. But is he going to be happy? Because if he even gets a ding, he ain't going to play. And that'll be terrible for the Giants.
He's playing for next year's contract, Jim, as well.
Yeah, but if he gets
they can franchise him again.
You think it was any little tweak that he's going to go out there and put himself in that position?
Yeah, I mean, he's playing without a net this season.
Yes.
That's the reality of the situation. And we've seen that with other players. The only difference is like Dak did that.
Yeah.
Got hurt, but he got his contract.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Barkley, it's a matter of, again, it really boils down to us as an offensive unit staying healthy. It's going to take, and I agree with Matt on this, it's going to take us at least the first 3 to 4 games before we see this offensive line gel together to really see what they're made of. It's going to take us a couple of games to see what our passing game looks like. So if you have a guy like Barkley or Jones go down in any time of the season, it's going to have a dramatic effect on our offense without a doubt, right?
I agree.
But without Barkley coming into this season, had he sat out, then the entire offense is playing without a safety net, because this is the guy who you rely on, who you lean on when you get that pressure, when Jones can't make, his reads in time. Barkley's the outlet. Now with Waller, I'm excited about Waller. Absolutely. Without a doubt. It's just
You're excited about him, but can he stay on the field? He's been hurt for a couple of years. And if the Raiders are going to move on from him, the lowly Raiders, how much can you expect from him, with the Giants? I know what he's done before. I know his upside. But what are the chances he's going to be healthy most of the year?
Well, see, that's the gamble. That's the roll of the dice, because really, when you look at every key component of our offense for the last 5-6 seasons, there's not a guy in our offense who isn't injury prone. There's just not. I mean, last year was an anomaly in many ways because we had Barkley and Jones healthy. Okay. We, as a third place team, we got into the playoffs as a wild card, which I don't see that happening 2 years in a row. So we had a lot of really unusual things happen, but the reality of the situation is we're vulnerable in those positions. We're vulnerable as far as our health goes, and it plays a big factor. So we can keep Barkley and Jones both healthy throughout the season, or at least through 3/4 of the season. That might put us in a great position to see some progress, some forward progress, which is what I really want to see accomplished in year 2 of the whole Dable, Shane era. Without a doubt.
Bobby, I wouldn't be happy with that. They got to go to the playoffs again. You got to take that step. And what separates, everybody looks at the wide receivers and the quarterbacks and all that stuff and the cornerbacks. What separates the Cowboys and the Eagles for the Giants? And I have to go back to it again. The Cowboys and the Eagles have great offensive lines. We'll see what happens with Zach Martin, but they have great offensive lines, and they can pass protect. They can run the ball well. That's what the Giants need. And maybe next year they go in the draft heavy and they draft offensive linemen. I don't know. I'm just hoping that they can, as you said, gel together, because we got a tough schedule coming up, man. We're playing 10 games away. Go ahead.
Just understand this, Mac. Okay. Game 1, week 1. It's playoff implications against Dallas, because the reality of the situation is, and I need you to hear this out, is for us to make the playoffs, we need the NFC East to be the strongest division in football this season. We need to see a 14-3 Eagles team. Then either we're the second place team or we've got to have a better third place record than any other second place team in our conference, you know? And so when you look at that, you look at the fact that we got Dallas, the 49ers, the Raiders, the Seahawks, Miami, Buffalo. We're going in against the AFC East and the NFC East. Right there, those are the games that we really, truly have to hone in.
Yeah, but Bobby, you're putting too much emphasis on one game, the first game of the year.
I'm just saying.
Put that emphasis on it because I would love for Dallas to win.
But the bottom line is, I mean, think about it like this, okay? The bottom line is your divisional games, okay? Your divisional games are important because the bottom line is we could both end up 10-7 with Dallas.
And I agree.
In those two games, you're in the playoffs and we're out.
If you notice it, divisional games are not as important in this NFL as it was in the past because that's what we grew up with. You got to win your divisions. But now, because of 17 games, you have chances now to recover. And you saw it last year with certain teams. They recovered after bad starts. And you'd love to win all your divisional games. Dallas, has lost one or two in the last 4 years, but they still haven't went to the Super Bowl. So it's about a league. If you can beat the teams in the AFC East or other teams you're facing, that gives you an advantage.
Yeah, Bobby, also, speaking of Dallas, the most optimistic Giant fans seem to feel the Eagles a little out of reach as far as winning the division. They're talking about second place beating out the Cowboys. Why the lack of respect for the Cowboys? They've been 12-5 the last 2 years. It's the quietest 12-5 I've ever seen. That's an excellent record. 2 years in a row, 12-5. And people are making it out like, oh, the Cowboys are due to slip. They're not that good. We can beat them out.
The Cowboys remind me of Aaron Rodgers back as the Packers quarterback. Okay. No disrespect to Aaron, no disrespect to his career, but let's face it. Him playing all those years in the NFC North gave him an advantage because he went into a season staring down the barrel at least a 5-1 to 6-0 situation in his own division.
Yeah, but here's the thing, too, is he owned the NFC West or the NFC North.
Right.
He owned it.
Now we're going into the AFC East, which is a completely different animal. So we're going to see what he does in this situation. And I really believe when it comes down to Dallas, okay, Dallas has a great start in the season. The hype is built up. It's at an all-time high going in October. But as I see Dallas Cowboys fans all over this great country, I tell them the same thing. December's always coming.
They were pretty good in December last year.
December's always coming. And then there's postseason, There's always
you got to remember, in Dallas, if you don't win championships, it's a failure. And that's just the reality of it. I've been here. I played here for a long time. If it's all about winning championships, quarterbacks, the Romos, even the Prescott, they don't care how many stats you have. It's if you're winning championships.
Mm-hmm. Has it been working out?
Not like the Jets. If you go 12-5, they're gonna have a party on Wall Street.
you won't be talking that way in February. That's all I'll say.
So Bobby. So I think that the Giants. This is my prediction. I'm going to get yours. I think they tied Dallas for second at like 10-6-1 or something, and maybe split with the Cowboys. And I think both of them get in the playoffs. That's what I'm thinking. I think that's what will happen. And I think Giants will have an easier path to the NFC Championship than Dallas this year. We'll see. That's just what I'm thinking.
Well, and here's the thing, and I have respect for you guys, but Philadelphia, the hardest thing to do is to repeat. And especially after you've lost it. And what is Philly talking about? How they got cheated out of the championship game. That's in the back of their mind. And I'm telling you, from being in it. The first time we went to the Super Bowl, we were the hunters. And I'm telling you, there's a difference. Now, the second, and that was easy because we were hunting and we were having a great time. When we went back, we were the hunted. Every team looked at us as the Super Bowl, and they thought this was their Super Bowl game. There is a total difference from the first. And I'm saying Philly is the most talented team. That's not the question. But can they keep it? Because every week you're going to get the best from every NFL team. I'm just telling you. I know this from being in that situation. We've never had to take a breath. We had to play at our best.
So, Jeff, how long has it been since an NFC East team has won the division 2 years in a row?
19, I think it was like two. I think Philadelphia was the last one that won back-to-back, and I think it was in the 2000s. I don't remember the exact time, but Philadelphia was the last one that won back-to-back.
Yeah, but usually, Jim, in most cases, I would venture to say a team that hasn't had the same type of year, didn't have a quarterback that was ascending the way Jalen Hurts is.
Well, Cincinnati went to the Super Bowl, and did they win?
They were good. They barely missed going.
They had Joe, but did they go?
Oh, but they barely missed.
I didn't ask you. Did they repeat after losing the Super Bowl? That's all I'm asking. Yes or no? It's an easy question.
Yeah, win is a win, loss is a loss. It doesn't matter how you win by or how much you lose by. So, Bobby, what's your prediction? Do you agree with me that we have a shot at maybe getting second place? I don't know what's going to happen with the Eagles. Maybe something, injuries kill them. I don't know. But do you think we have a good shot at second place this year?
I mean, yeah, I think we have a good shot at it. Boils down to a number of different factors, but yeah, it's possible.
So y'all gonna be fighting the Eagles for second place. Interesting.
It's possible. It's possible. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll tell you this.
We'll see.
Who knows? We get things going. You know how we start off traditionally and how we finish. It's not to say that in week 16 or week 18 we don't take one of those wins.
It's Washington.
Things have happened. And that's the edge that puts us over the hump against Dallas.
Bobby, I grew up 35 minutes away from the Giants, and I know the Giants' history. I know how they struggled until obviously, and Parcells got there, and before when Jack was born, they were really good with some of the guys they had then.
Well, Frank Gifford and those guys.
But the Giants they're going to be competitive, but it's going to be hard on them this year because they didn't see them coming last year, and Paul has done a tremendous job, but people are going to prepare different. In that second year, their preparation is different, and that's for all the teams. That's for all.
Right. So, everybody talks about the schedule, the toughness of the schedule, but I think in our case, what it boils down to is we're to get to where we're going and where we like to be, Mac, we're facing a tremendous number of challenges going into the season.
Now, here's the question: is when the Jets and the Giants play, who has the advantage?
Okay. I'm going to be objective with this one. Okay. As far as if we look down the line at all the factors, I'm going to say we do. Okay. I'm going to say we do. Now, what I'd like to see happen after we beat the Jets, and you can have the preseason game there, Jack. I don't mind about that.
You can win that game. Yeah, the Giants have a good chance of winning this game later this month. Yeah, the preseason game.
I'll buy the first ticket to Newark, and I'll help the Jets personnel pack it up, and you can take your show to Citi Field.
Bobby, no one, including you, is talking about the Giants winning the Super Bowl.
A 1-16 record if we can get the Jets to Citi Field.
No one is talking about the Giants winning the Super Bowl. No one, even the most optimistic Giant fan, all you're talking about is getting second place, beating out the Cowboys. That makes your season. At least with the Jets, people are talking Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers went twice to a Taylor Swift concert And he was heard singing the Jets win the Super Bowl when the confetti was coming down. You don't see anyone on the Giants, and they're not predicting they win the Super Bowl. No one.
Okay, so let's address that. Okay, I noticed that when the deal was done, Namath, God bless him, great guy. Namath sits down and says, "My number's available to you. You can take number 12." Rodgers, class act, decides to take his old college number 8. But do you think, without a shadow of doubt, that if Rodgers wore number 12 and didn't perform, didn't deliver, that would put a darker cloud over his head?
He will deliver. I mean, everyone knows Aaron Rodgers is going to deliver.
They thought Brett Favre was going to deliver.
A different situation. Different situation. Brett Favre didn't buy all in.
He had the choice. He had the choice. Jeff, he had the choice between 8 and 12. Think about it. If he took that number 12, people are going to expect him to do bigger things. I mean, think about it. Without a shadow of a doubt, the expectation is there on Rodgers, without a doubt, right?
Out of respect,
I'm just saying, take a great number, put it on your back. You know, it's like somebody putting on Superman's cape and uniform. They expect super things. And all I'm saying is, if the disappointment comes and Jacket's on the way, I just need you to understand he's not going to taint the legacy of that number in the New York organization. So he deferred and he went to number 8. Because whatever he does at this point...
You're saying Aaron Rodgers is setting himself up to fail just in case. He doesn't think that way, Aaron Rodgers.
To be really honest, I think the AFC East, team to team, the whole division, if you take all 4 teams, is better than the NFC East right now. Because we got Washington there.
You would say that?
And we'll see.
But Washington's going to be better.
We'll see what happens, Jim. Yeah, I might be wrong. I'm just taking what I see right now. The Jets could finish in last place. They really could. Any one of those teams can finish in last place this year. I really believe that. I think the Patriots are better.
For the most part, that's the NFC East.
I think Washington is not as good as the other teams yet, Jim. I don't think they are. Well, you might be right. I just think if I look at
Washington, Sam Howell's
that's the problem. That's the problem. I agree with that. So, but I think the Patriots are going to be a lot better than people are saying. If Tua stays healthy, Miami's a Super Bowl contender, and Buffalo, this may be their last chance. I think that if the Jets' offensive line cannot block for Aaron Rodgers and they don't have a strong run game this year, the Jets could finish in last.
But this is what scares me about what we're saying about the AFC East is what we said last year about the AFC West.
Yeah.
You see what happened. I'm not saying these teams are not going to be good. That's not what I'm saying. But that's down the path that we're going. Because Buffalo was the only one who made the playoffs last year, correct?
Miami made the playoffs.
Miami. But they didn't, they didn't perform well in the playoffs.
They lost to Buffalo in the playoffs.
That was my point. But what I'm saying is we know what we have in the NFC East. And we know what type of teams we have in the NFC East. But we don't know what we have in the AFC East yet. We're anticipating it'll be a great thing, but they're also playing the NFC East this year. And we know there's some good teams in the NFC East. You can say what you want, and we're going to find out a lot early.
I'll tell you,
a lot has to be said about chemistry. And you even look at the Cowboys, you wonder about their chemistry. Ronald Jones is missing a couple of games because of substance abuse. Zach Martin is holding out for now. He's unhappy with his contract. Tony Pollard, we don't know, off the leg injury. Something to be said about chemistry, and there's so many things that seem to be
they got the biggest part. They still have Prescott. They still have
that's one of the factors, too. He is really under the microscope.
I'd rather take him.
Yeah, really under the microscope.
I take him than the majority of quarterbacks because you look at his record just against the NFC East. It's pretty impressive.
He had.
Well, the last thing I got to say on that is the reason why Dallas Cowboys didn't go to Super Bowl was because Dak Prescott got through too many interceptions, and you can't deny that, Jim.
Is it always him?
And the year before that,
there were some receivers
and the year before that, he didn't get up there on the football. He blew it there. So I'm listen. I think that Dak Prescott's a very, very, very good quarterback. I really do. I think he could play on the most of the teams as a starter, at least on half.
Would you take Daniel Jones?
I just think that Dak Prescott.
Would you
right
take
now?
Daniel Jones? Yeah,
Daniel
right
Jones.
now. Oh man.
I would take Dak Prescott. No, listen. I would take Dak Prescott over Daniel Jones right now because you got to look at the body work. However, if you told me by the end of the year Daniel Jones is going to be rated a little ahead of Dak Prescott, I wouldn't be shocked.
I would, because I think Prescott's going to have a tremendous year. I think he's going to have a tremendous year.
Well, they got him Brandon Cooks. He has CD Lamb. I mean, he has.
And then Michael Gallup is finally healthy. And then they got, I told you about Jalen Turner. They got some receivers now.
Yeah.
And they don't have to depend just on.
Do you know, Bobby? Do you know, Bobby, that Jim Jeffcoat grew up a Giants fan, and he's still really down deep is a Giants fan. He's mad because they didn't. He's mad because they didn't draft him out of college. Dallas drafted him instead of the Giants. If the Giants drafted him, Jim would be here with me and you discussing how great the Giants are going to be this year.
Yeah, but Bobby, you also know that I beat them twice to win a NFC East division by running touchdowns. D linemen don't run touchdowns, but I did it against them.
See, I disagree. I think James Calling would have been to be a Detroit Lion. He'd be in the Hall of Fame if he was a Lion. That's where he should have gone, to Detroit. They would have been losers every year. He would have stood out.
I got nominated as a Cowboy.
As you see, Bobby, not only do we give insight, we just ride each other the whole show. So that's the unique thing about this show.
My mom taught me to pray for the afflicted, But
Bobby, I was never.
Bobby, we're gonna.
Right. No, Jeff, don't be that. But I will say this: you represent what I define as a pure cowboy. Okay, you had no choices of where you got drafted.
That's true.
Played with a great organization, no doubt about that. In fact, when I meet people from the Texas, Mississippi, Oklahoma area, the Cowboys fans have no issue with that. However, when I meet a guy who comes from Maine, who's never been to Dallas, never seen a Cowboys game on the road, professes to be a diehard Cowboys fan, okay? That's a whole different dynamic, your organization, great. Your national fan base, fine. Okay.
You make a good point
but when you get out there, I agree with you. What I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do. But Jack spends the winters in Florida, and he professes to be a Jets fan, but he's closer to Tampa. And all of a sudden, he goes to Tampa games.
But see,
I'm going to go this year. I already got tickets to Buccaneers against the Jaguars in December. But Bobby, let me ask you this question. Mike Tannenbaum, the former Jet GM, who's an ESPN analyst, he said that Daniel Jones was a little bit selfish for not taking a little less money to see that money could go to Saquon Barkley. And let's compare that to Aaron Rodgers, who took, a $35 million pay cut. That's unheard of because he wanted the Jets to be able to pay other players. He wanted to show his commitment to the Jets, Aaron Rodgers. So look at the attitudes of the two players. Could Daniel Jones have taken, let's say, $3 million less and told the front office quietly, let's see that Saquon Barkley gets his money, because a major part of Daniel Jones's success depends on Saquon Barkley.
Bobby, before you answer that question, I am tired of this I am tired of this contract, Daniel Jones versus Saquon Barkley. Right now, Aaron Rodgers, even with that pay cut, makes like $20 more million a year than Daniel Jones does. That's number one. Number two is that Saquon Barkley got paid what he got for his position. Daniel Jones got paid what he got for his position. The contracts between the two have nothing to do with it. If the Giants wanted to pay Saquon Barkley more money, they sure could have, because they made some big signings after that, Daniel Jones, including Andre Thomas and picking up Robert. So I don't want to hear all that noise. They paid what they paid. Saquon signed the contract for 1 year, and here we go.
See, I honestly think this is the area where fans have to stay out of players' pockets, because fans have this tendency at contract time, contract negotiations, to always label a player as greedy when they overlook the fact that if you look at last season, Amazon Prime paid the ownership $1 billion to have rights for Thursday Night Football. Do you know what they made per game that they broadcast last year? $3.2 billion.
Yeah, Jack.
Okay? So when I look at that, like, look, listen, I mean, we got to deal with the salary cap, no doubt, without a doubt, right? But the bottom line is fans get caught up in what the players make versus
that
what
is
the
a
ownership
great
makes. Because that $1 billion is going to cost each one of you more money per season to watch football. Sunday tickets up to what, $500 for the season?
Yeah, but players talk too. They see what's going on the rest of the team. Jim lived this with Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith, back in the day when they won the Super Bowl, was a holdout for a couple of games. And I know guys like Jim were telling Emmitt Smith, his teammates, stick to your guns. Don't let them push you around. And then on the side, when Emmitt Smith is out of earshot, they'd say Emmitt should be here helping the team. You know, you hear that all the time.
That's not true, because you're billionaires versus millionaires.
Yes.
You know, I'll say this for the rest of the league. Okay, for the rest of the league, they're transitioning away from running.
That is true.
But when you look at it, Tennessee and the New York Giants are run-dependent teams. And so, as we go into this season facing challenges, we've got to throw the ball more this year, unlike what we did last year. We do, and that's untested right now, without a doubt. It's untested. Yeah. So if the pass isn't there, what are we going to do, Jeff? Jim, we're gonna lean on the run, right?
But here's the problem:
that brings a little extra value to a guy like Barkley.
Yeah, and I agree with you to a certain extent. Football is very cyclical; it goes in circles. Mm-hmm. The Giants are probably now they can run the ball, but Philadelphia's running the ball more than you think. They got A.J. Brown, but they run the ball, and that's why they got Penny and some of the players they got. The Cowboys are going to have to run the ball, because everybody is going with smaller defenders. And what's happening is taking something away from the passing game. So the Giants, Saquon Barkley, those guys don't want to tackle Saquon. And that's the thing. Everybody, the cycle is going back to the running. And that's what I think. That's just my personal opinion. It was a passing we thought and I think that's a little bit of the issues with the Dolphins, because they depend so much on their passing game, and you see what Tua got it. So I think it's going to trend more and more teams. And even Mike McCarthy said that we got to run the ball better, and we got to help the defense.
No doubt. Bobby, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Thank you for coming in. It was a pleasure having you. We enjoyed. I love to talk about Giants. I could talk about Giants all day. So I'm gonna let you go, and love to have you on again if you got a shot.
Love to come back again.
Talk a little more.
It was great. It was great meeting you, Bobby.
It's great meeting you,
Bobby.
You can take Jack with you.
Jack, I just went to the bye week. Aaron can catch a cab in New York.
Yeah, they were complaining what it costs to catch a cab in New York. You know, you go 1 mile and it'll break you. You got a steak dinner for the 1 mile ride.
All right, guys.
All right, Bobby.
Remember, remember Tailgate Talk with Bobby Stan the Man Stansmann. Check him out. Have a good one,
sir.
Bob.
All right. I'll see you guys later. In fact, I want to have you guys on my show.
All right. That was good.
You know, I didn't ask.
There you go. Bobby wants to.
I didn't ask him. Was that name after the former wrestler Stan the Man Stasiak?
Wow.
Who was a wrestler. Yeah.
I remember that when I was a kid.
Maybe after Stan the Man Musial from the Cardinals. Who knows?
Oh yeah.
That's
right.
So guys, let's get back to the stuff we ain't covered yet. And I was glad that, of course, like I said, I love having Giants talk on, but I want to talk about the whole league more than just the Giants. So I've been putting together an all-time NFC East team. I started with the defense, and I want to get both of your opinion on it because this is the first team. We'll do the subs of the second team next, and of course, some of you'll think, well, maybe
you gotta let me know
team
to
is
prepare this. I can't wing it all.
No, I don't, Jack. I didn't let Jim know. So I'm not letting you know, and you're a historian, so you should have no problem with this at all.
Yeah, Jack, he did put it on Facebook.
Nothing of an NFC East team. I mean,
can you let him finish?
So anyway, let's start with the defensive line for the NFC East. This is the All-Pro, All Hall of Fame, or whatever you want to call it, the greatest NFC East defensive line in the history of football. And I say I got some subs that we'll talk about next week. So at right defensive end, Reggie White. That's right. Everybody agrees with that.
No question about that.
At right defensive tackle, a lot of people forget about the Washington Redskins defense, and they had a good defense during the Super Bowl year. I got Dave Butts there.
Mm-hmm. I can.
Left defensive tackle, I got Randy White.
Yes.
Okay. And at left defensive end, now it's not biased or nothing, but I mean, a sub could be better than this. I have Michael Strahan there.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Okay.
Then you can't argue with that.
What do you think so far, Jack? Unmute yourself.
What about Too Tall Jones? Does he fit in?
Yeah, but he's not in the Hall of Fame yet. All those players are
Hall of Famers.
Butts is not in the Hall of Fame, right?
I think so. I think Butts is there too. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
So on linebackers, at right outside linebacker next to Reggie White, I got Lawrence Taylor. Right, that would be a heck of a combo there, right? At middle linebacker, I got Harry Carson. And at left, outside linebacker, DeMarcus Ware. He just got in. So I called that before that.
That's pretty good right there.
Can't argue with any of those choices.
No.
I mean, if I was a quarterback, I'd be scared, right? I mean, if you had them linebackers coming at you and third down. Now, here's where it's going to get a little tricky because, we don't really talk about safeties and cornerbacks as much as we do the other ones. So at left cornerback, I got Emerson Walls.
Yeah. Giant and Cowboy.
Yep. At left safety, I got Darren Woodson, another Cowboy.
Yes.
At right safety, I got Brian Dawkins.
You can't argue with that.
That's a good one, right? And then at right cornerback, I got another Eagle, Eric Allen.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I would argue with that because you're taking one of the greatest players is Darryl Green. You didn't put Darryl Green in there.
He'll be in next week's show. Trust me. He's there.
No, he should be in the first one.
You think he should?
Darrell Green had a longer career than any of them. Think about this. He played longer.
Darryl Green was 19 years.
Yeah, longer than any other. Yeah, Hall of Famer there.
Yeah. So I would put Darryl Green before Eric Allen or Everson Walls. That's just my.
And he was the fastest player during his time. I don't know if he still would be or not, but I think he was like 4.28 or something ridiculous.
Well, he was in Jim's draft class. He was the last player drafted in the first round.
That is true.
Yeah, which shows you what the players that came out of that round.
But that's just my opinion.
Well, I agree. Darryl Green is one of the greatest of all time. I do agree with that. Mm-hmm. So, like I said,
even Walls or Eric Allen, don't get me wrong, they were good players, but Darryl Green's the only one in the Hall of Fame at this point.
That's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth. I think all 4 of them eventually will get in the Hall of Fame. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not sure.
And Dawkins is in there.
Darren Dawkins, yeah, he'll be up in the next week's show. So
no, he's already in.
Yeah.
Ryan Dawkins.
So Jim, let me get your thoughts. And I talked to Byron about this, the Hall of Fame game. Now Jack mentioned, and I read that this morning too, that Sean Payton's going to put in his starters. And I don't know if the other team's going to retaliate and put their starters in, or if they're going to play their rookies and the heck with what they do, because you're really, I mean, it's going to be kind of, maybe it won't be unfair. Maybe they'll surprise you, the other teams. But what Sean Payton's doing is kind of old school, ain't it? I mean, this is what coaches did. Coaches played this veteran.
They should, because now you get your timing, and it is crucial. And you can agree or disagree, it's crucial that Denver starts well and get their timing down. They don't have a choice. They got to get this. I remember when we were 1-15, we played starters a lot, but it's set. Hey, this is the way we're going to do it. This is what's going to happen, and I don't have a problem with it. You always worry about injuries, but you can get injured at any time in the game. Now with Aaron Rodgers, I wouldn't do that. He wants to, but I would.
Jim, that this has always been a beef of mine. Let's say hypothetically, one team is 31 points ahead of the other team. There are 9 minutes left in the game. They've got the game won, realistically. It's over. The second string players you put in on your offense, the team that's ahead, I want to see them do things as if the game was even, because these are game conditions. It helps the second stringers in case they ever have to get in an emergency. Let the quarterback throw long. But the sensitivities are so great. It's like an unwritten code. You just hand the ball off and chew the clock out.
Not in a preseason game. I would, just like you just said, hey, if you want, you're going to have to play really well. Even if I'm up 31, I'm going after you. I'm doing the things that are going to help my
regular season game. But I'm saying a regular season game.
In a regular season game, Jimmy Johnson was big on that. He would say, hey, if we're beating a team by 2025, we're still going after them. And they said, well, that's not playing football, but it is playing football, because teams could come back. You see it every week. Some team can't.
When we know they can't come back, Jim. When we know they can't come back, that's what I'm talking about.
They can't come back when the game is over, Jack. That's how I look at it.
I'm kind of torn. I think Jack has a point to a point.
I know he has a point.
I mean, I think that, if it's 8 minutes left in the game and you're up by 35, I don't care if you got Tom Brady there. I don't think you're going to come back. You don't have to pull your defense out. You can put your offensive second stringers in there if you want and see if they can do anything. I mean,
let me ask you a question.
Pull everybody out, Jim.
My only question is, if the Miracle in Tennessee, remember, no, it wasn't there. It was Jim Kelly against the Houston.
That was Frank Reich who led the comeback in the playoffs.
Right.
I'm saying no, that was a lot of time. Listen, it was 35-3 at one point, but then Buffalo cut it to 35-17 in the third quarter. I'm not talking about when there's a lot of time left.
So the amount of time to me is
if a team is up 31 points with 6 minutes left in the game, they're not blowing the lead. They're not blowing the lead.
Jack. I'm trying to be funny because weird things happen. So what I'm going to do is, they always had this. At a certain time, if you can run out the clock, that's when you kneel. But until that time, you got to run the ball or pass it. And it's not. They do it every week in college football now. They pile on. If you don't want them to score, then you stop.
Talking about the players on offense getting in game condition work that you can't get in practice. Let your backups open things up, because you might need them in a real close game situation down the line.
So Jim, like I said, a long time ago, that's what they did. Of course, they didn't have as many players being caught and moved around as they do today. You really, you didn't really have a chance way back when you played to impress people a lot. I mean, when you made your shot to impress somebody, you really had to take that shot because I believe that, Jim.
It's different because we had over 100 players in camp, if you remember. And that was the thing. And we had 6 weeks in training camp.
That's true.
That's true. Cutting it down. Then that was a little different. So you did have time because we'd always bring the rookies in first, and the veterans would come in after 2 weeks. And that's how we practiced.
That's a good point.
It was a lot different. And there were guys free agents that made the team because they impressed in those first 2 weeks and continued it into the veteran camps.
Let me ask you, Jim, you believe in this rookie stuff? I'm not talking about hazing. Obviously we're all against hazing, but you believe you make a rookie carry a badge? Because I'm going to tell you
that's
something.
Not a big deal.
No. Let's take a situation, for example, with the Carolina Panthers. They got Bryce Young. He's the face of the franchise now. He's going to be the leader of that team. You don't make him come in as a rookie and carry a third-year player's back who's, on defense.
Why not? Hey, Jack.
He's your leader. He's your leader. You got to look up to him for leadership. He's not a bellboy. He's a leader.
No, that's no big deal. Bill Parcells would take, and Mac knows this, is that he would, the first round choice would have to bring him a cup of water during practice, every practice.
Yeah,
that's the coach.
Not that big of a deal.
Before you become the leader of that franchise, because right now, Bryce Young is not the leader of that that team. He's a rookie quarterback trying to make the team.
He's the face of the
He's the face of the franchise now.
Well, then I feel bad for Carolina, and that's probably true that he is the face. But the point I'm trying to make, Jim, is first he's got to become a member of the team before he becomes the leader of the team. You can't come in there thinking that you're all that, because the veterans ain't going to want to hear that.
He's the first overall pick. He doesn't have to make it.
Zach Wilson was the face of the New York Jets, but he was not the leader. Correct?
You have to perform on the field
to be the leader. That's what we're saying.
But first, you got to be a member of the team. First, you got to kind of go through even in high school and college, you do things and you could be the number one recruit, say for Georgia. You're the number one recruit. You're the best player in high school. You think that they're going to let him come on the field and just do what he wants?
It's different in college. It's a lot different.
No, it is not, Jack. You have to show those leadership qualities. You just don't automatically walk in and become that guy. There's some, but for the majority, there are certain players that can do that. Saquon Barkley, he was that guy. The Micah Parsons, they came in and became that guy. But they also had to go through a learning curve.
And they also had to become acclimated to the team. And whether you like it or not, that's part of the acclimation of the team. And that's just the way it is. So the Hall of Fame game, Jim itself, get your comments on that. A lot of the sites I'm looking at, they were kind of praising Zach Wilson for going 3 for 5. I was kind of disappointed. I would have loved to seen Zach Wilson stay in for a few drives, maybe a quarter. I mean, he needs work. He needs his confidence built. He made that one good throw, and he still looks shaky out there to me. I don't know what it is.
The best thing that ever happened to Zach Wilson is obviously having Rodgers around, because he sees things from a player's perspective. You can have the greatest coordinators, but Rodgers obviously, Aaron Rodgers sees different, and he can tell him things. And that's why, if you notice, Jordan Love is having a great camp, and this is the reason. And they had time to sit back there, and they could say what they want about Rodgers. He doesn't work with young players. But if you watch him, he sees things. He knows what certain things, and that's going to help Zach Wilson become a better player. And that's it. I really believe that.
I don't know.
Jordan Love is having a so-so camp from what I heard. He'll have a great day, an off day, a little inconsistent, but it remains to be seen. The Zach Wilson situation for this year having Aaron Rodgers is the best thing that could happen to him because he can reset and the fans will be off his back. They'll hear that he's developing, so the Jet fans might start liking him again, thinking, he might be a good quarterback.
And he might get better. It might help him in the locker room too, Jack.
But Mac is right. Mac is right. One long 57-yard pass. It's as if the Jets were thinking, "Wow, let's get him out of there while he could focus on the one long pass." It's like they're babying him, as far as his confidence goes.
Well, they got to build his confidence. That's the hardest position.
Come on, Jim. He's a man. He's an NFL. I mean, he got drafted. What kind of
number 2 overall?
Are we going to baby this guy? If he can play in the NFL, he can. If he can't, he can't. I mean, I don't understand that. Nobody babied you. Nobody babied people. They may help you, but they're not pulling you out to make sure your feelings don't get hurt. I mean, since when that is football?
Yeah, we got this thing with
players you have to do that with, and that's just the way it is. And I think Stan the Man said the stage of Rodgers' career, he's more likely to work with Wilson in the film room because Rodgers has seen things. He's seen coverages. He's seen the way defenses attack. This is how you attack defenses, and that's what the veterans did with me: the Randy Whites, the Ed Jones, the John Duttons, the Harvey Martins, because they've seen it. And they would tell me, this is how you're going to react to it.
Jim, when Mason Rudolph was drafted in the 3rd round by the Pittsburgh Steelers, Big Ben Roethlisberger said, it's not my job to work with him. I'll give him advice now and then, but it's not my job to,
You're right.
like mentor, teach him.
And some players are like that. They don't want to deal with young players because they know that at some point, they're going to take their position.
I mean, listen, maybe Aaron Rodgers of course, he's willing to work with Wilson now. I mean, that gives him a little more feather in his cap. I'm just concerned about the Jets drafted him 2nd overall, and he's not going to pan out, Jim. And I really believe that if this kid can't get it together this year under Rodgers, or if Rodgers gets hurt, I mean, the Jets the Jets do not have a good, solid second-string quarterback. Let's be honest.
He's won games with the Jets. The Jets don't want him on the field this year because that means Aaron Rodgers got hurt. They just want him in mop-up role if they're far ahead in the game and let him throw a touchdown pass. In an emergency, listen, it's his 3rd year in the league. He's been a little erratic. Zach Wilson has had some success, guys. It's not like he's been a flop. He just hasn't lived up to expectations.
Let me ask you this question. Bobby brings up, Stan the Man brings up another good point. And that is true. Brett Favre didn't want to work with Aaron Rodgers. If you know that. Aaron Rodgers was there for 5 years. But Aaron Rodgers was smart enough to watch Brett. He didn't get him to work with, but he knew what Brett did. And he had good around him.
Well, Jim, that's also out of respect. Rodgers is right on his heels. I mean, I can understand that. You want to keep that first-string quarterback. Rodgers is that good that, hey, I ain't going to help this guy out because he's going to take my starting position away. One last thing I want to get from you. I'll do little Philadelphia news. Pags didn't make it in today. Was it not concerning to you, but did it bother you that when they did the pregame of Cleveland versus the Jets, they didn't talk about the Browns hardly at all, Jim? I didn't. Even when they go to the other side of the field, they normally talk about the other team. They were talking about Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, and Cleveland ended up winning the game, and it was preseason. But if I was a Cleveland Brown guy, I would be highly ticked off. It's like, look, we got a team over here too that's pretty good.
Yeah, but nobody knows how good Cleveland's going to be. They anticipate the Jets are going to be a good team, and Cleveland. I agree with you. I hate to say this, Cleveland is my dark horse team because I think they could be that with Watson this year. They could be that good.
All right.
But let's be honest about it. The Jets are the most compelling story in the NFL to start the season because of Aaron Rodgers. Let's be honest about it.
I agree.
I mean, they're the biggest soap opera thing. We want to see how the whole thing plays out.
August 8th. I know Jack will be watching, Hard Knocks, and we'll probably get a report from Jack because I'm not going to watch it. I really don't care about it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna watch it.
But I know Jack will have his popcorn and his soda, and he'll be ready to go. Jim, let's do a little Philly news, Jack. Josh Stills acquitted of rape and kidnapping.
Yes.
Off the commission exempt list. I mean, I didn't see what happened there. Was it just he didn't do it?
It was something that happened in college.
Right.
It happened in college, and they acquitted him of the and it's kind of sad that this happens in this day and age because we saw it with the punter from Razor from Buffalo. And these kids get in situations and you can accuse, but what about people it really happens to? But you can accuse a person and it never happened. And that's the sad part of it. And
anyone could get accused of anything at any time. And unfortunately, even though charges could be dropped even the next day, you have that stigma because then if a second person falsely accuses you, they say, well, you have a record, this and that. And
that's true. If you
remember,
remember,
I once served as a juror on a case, and the person on trial was asked, well, weren't you arrested and so? And he said, yeah, but the charges were dropped a couple of days later because they saw he had nothing to do with the previous thing. But it sounds bad. Weren't you arrested another time?
Well, I can remember a couple of years ago, there was this real talented linebacker from a high school, Long Beach Poly in California, and a girl accused him. And he went to prison, and the girl told later on, she recanted and said, no, that didn't happen. I was mad at him.
Well, did they let him out of prison? Because I've seen it.
Yeah, they let him out of prison, and he tried out for the NFL.
I've seen it where they've recanted and the prosecution refused to take it back to court too, which is
true. And the sad thing about it is, if it really happens, that's the sad thing.
Exactly.
And there's a fine line between that.
I agree. Worst camp day of camp for Hurst. Sirianni really gave it to him. So Jalen Hurts had a bad camp, through a few interceptions, and Sirianni let him have it. So Sirianni, I don't know. I kind of don't like him, but when I hear stories like this, then I kind of like him. You know what I mean? On the sidelines, I hate him. I really do.
It makes you like Jalen Hurts because with all the power he commands, he's okay. A coach could chew him out, like he buys in, like he's one of the guys. He doesn't put himself above the coach. So you kind of like that attitude. It helps him keep the eye of the tiger, Jalen Hurts.
Yes, I agree with that. A couple injuries over there. Nakobe Dean and Bradbury, both minor injuries. That's the only thing I'm scared of with Nakobe Dean. He's a little guy, and he's going to get crunched a few times. And, I don't know, maybe they should – I guess he's going to be a safety linebacker hybrid. I mean, that's the only thing I'm worried about this guy with.
He was a leader at Georgia, but there were injury concerns. I'm a believer you can't be a leader if you can't be on the field. You got to be on the field most of the time to be a leader.
I agree.
Good point. So, folks, we're coming to the end of the big football show. Thanks for coming in. Thursday, preseason starts again. We'll have some games. The Cowboys and the Patriots and the Giants will all play next week. We'll be able to talk about that. We didn't give our predictions. I think I'm going to hold off on the predictions.
Yeah, let's hold off on that.
Let's hold off so we can really think about it. And
I know do it the week before, Matt.
There you go. All right.
Well, we don't know what injuries could take place, so we'd have to revise them maybe if we can.
It's a good point.
That is a good point.
So thanks to Ian from down under in Australia. Thank you for Rick. Thanks again for Bobby Stan, the man. We'll love to have him on again. And I know any one of us would be delighted to be on your show, Bobby. So thank you for the offer. And folks, we'll be back next week. I'm going to try and get us another special guest in to talk about another team. There's a bunch of super fans out there that I'm starting to contact with, and maybe we'll get lucky like we did with the Philly sports guy. He came in and everybody's like, "What the heck is this guy?" Ended up being very knowledgeable and a great sportscaster. So we'll be checking that out. Again, folks, have a great Sunday. Jack, Monday with tomorrow night we're going to talk about the Nate Diaz Jake Paul fight. Believe it or not. All right. The only question there for me is, when is Jake Paul going to fight a real fighter? Jim is on Wednesday night. J&B Talking Shop. Check him out with Byron Williams. That's all football, and it's a great show. And of course, me and Jack will be back here on Friday with the Mac and Jack Friday edition. Thanks again, guys. Have